Well, good morning. Today is our third installment of our 8-week look at the Beatitudes from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. As I mentioned before, these are our to be. Jesus is telling us this is who we are to be as followers of Him, and He's telling this to His disciples, and as followers of Christ, that's what we are, disciples. So these are who we are to be. And again, this sermon series is titled Mind Blown because every single teaching that we go through in this 8-week segment is a mind-blowing countercultural teaching of Jesus. Okay, what the world teaches you, these teachings are absolutely the opposite of what the world says of how you should be and how you should live. And so that's why we titled this the mind-blowing, because it's really, our mind should be exploding as we're like, man, seriously? I mean, I have to be that different from the world, but that's who Jesus calls us to be. Each of these Beatitudes brings us into a direct conflict with the value systems of this world and our own sinful pride and our own selfishness. Remember in week 1, as we went through the first 2 Beatitudes, or in week 1, it said, only if we are poor in spirit and recognize our own deficiencies and our dependence upon God, will we be blessed. That's what a blessed life is, those people that are able to do that. And then in week 2, it says, only if we mourn over our sinfulness can we find the blessed life that Jesus offers. So again, both of those are very different from what the world tells us of how we should be and how we should live our lives. These teachings don't really fit well with our, survival of the fittest mentality that we were all raised to live. And I think that's been built into each one of us, as survival of the fittest. And we're taught from the get-go that those that have the ability to be strong and to survive are the ones that are going to succeed in life. And so this third installment of the Beatitudes, again, goes against this survival of the fittest mentality. And let's go into it. It's Matthew chapter 5, verse 5. And if you want to turn, it's just a short passage, and I'm going to spend most of my time only on this passage. It says, God blesses those who are humble. Some versions might use the word meek, but God blesses those who are humble or meek, for they will inherit the whole earth. Now, for me, this is one of the hardest Beatitudes for me to hear, because I struggle with this. And again, I already know the meaning because I've studied it and understand it, so I'm speaking a little ahead of this. But this is a very difficult one for me to do because I struggle with meekness. I struggle with humility at times. There are times, even last night, don't tell him I said this, but my son right now is struggling with sleeping, having a sleeping issue at night, where he's waking up, and I think it's with all the changes in his life and things that are going on. He keeps waking up, and then he goes into this, I can't sleep, and he wakes everyone up, and he's crying all night. It's not fun. But I easily lose my cool. Out of the frustrations of this, even though I don't really believe it's in his control. But it's more of the disrespectfulness at night and things like that gets me. But this is hard for me to hear because I feel like I struggle deeply with this issue. The interpretation of this passage can be tricky to interpret, but most translations, as I said, use the word meek or humble. One version I saw as gentleness is another version. And really, there's not a single word, as this was written in Greek, there's not a single word that kind of encapsulates what Jesus is saying here. Okay, it's really a phrase in Greek, and then our English translation is not very good. It doesn't really do it much justice, but we're going to go ahead and assume that it's meek, and because it's very close. Meek, humble. When I hear the word humble, I think it's actually a good thing. When I think of the word humble, usually that has great things behind it. It's seen as a good thing. It means you're successful and that you've accomplished a lot of things, but you aren't looking for the accolades. You're not looking for the acknowledgement of the things you've done. You just kind of do what needs to be done without needing sort of a pat on the back or a way to go, you're the best type of mentality. You just do the right things. It's the epitome of selflessness. As I said, other versions of this passage use the word meek. Now, when I hear the word meek, there's a completely different connotation that I hear when that goes in my mind when I hear the word the word meek, and I wonder if it's the same for you. When I hear meek, I think of shyness. I think of someone that is shy and doesn't want to speak. And it really paints a picture of a submissive person, a person that's just a follower, not a leader. A meek person is just someone that follows whatever somebody in power tells them to do. And we were taught from a young age, I believe, not to be meek. We're taught from a young age to, you got to get out of that shyness. You got to stand up for yourself. You need to not roll over when people are bossing you around. You can't be meek, or what's going to happen is this world is going to chew you up and spit you back out, and then chew you up again and spit you back out for the rest of your life. And you can't. You got to be able to live, and so you can't be this meek person. It's our natural tendency as we live to meet every challenge with challenge to our ego with aggression. Any personal insult that any of us have probably ever received, inside of us, there's a stirring in our gut that wants to fight back. It's built within us, whether it's natural, whether it's something that we're born with, or something that we're taught from the very beginning of our lives, but we're always desiring to meet insults with retaliation. It's who we are. And this attitude of retaliating is built right into the core of who we've always been. If you think about, I love old movies, and if you think about old movies, it's always when somebody wrongs you, there's this code of honor, and I challenge you to a duel. Or I'm going to go out to like a duel with swords, or you duel with a gun, or whatever. But in these old movies, if someone came at you and insulted your character, or a pretty maiden, or something like that, or I'm gonna fight you to the duel to get this honor and respect back that you've taken from this person or from myself. And it's built inside of us. And if we can eliminate and avenge in these movies, if they can eliminate or avenge this insulter, then we're the hero. We're the hero. We've done something amazing. And these actions are typically no longer accepted, but the attitude still reigns in our hearts. So much so that I think many of us, when we hear the words of Jesus, "Blessed are the meek," we would consider that laughable. Seriously? I'm not going to be meek. That's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. I don't want to be meek. Jesus, you've got to be kidding me. I'm not going to be meek. It's an insult to our dignity and to our pride. We all know that, we all understand that the powerful aggressor, the person that's the leader that's got power and aggression, is the one that's always going to get what he or she wants. And the meek, those that are meek, that are followers, that are shy, submissive people, are going to be crushed and trampled under the feet of the strong. And the strong are going to inherit the earth. Those meek people are even fortunate to have anything in their life whatsoever. Power is what appeals to the people in this world. And the people of this world want to follow a person with strength of power. Even your pastor, me, I'm not immune to these natural and ingrained tendencies of struggling over my own pride and the desire for power. Now, I just completed my final season as the Mount Zion Junior High girls basketball coach, and it's always a fun experience to do that. And the reason why I have done it from the beginning is because I love sports, I love competition, I love basketball, and I love the opportunity to minister through athletics to girls. And they don't even know I'm ministering to them, but I'm being Jesus to them. It gives me an opportunity, tons and tons of time with these teenagers, and even to make an impact on their parents at the same time, and grandparents, and everyone that comes. And so, but I sometimes will struggle with my competitiveness and my pride and ego raising to the top. And Jesus can get put to the side at times over my ego, pride, and competitive and passion. I believe the second game of the season, there's a group. I want to win. Okay, I desire to win, and I believe the last game, it was the second game, I believe, but we were away, and every call went for the other team. Every single call. And in this COVID era, only the other school, their parents could be at the games. None of our parents could be at the games. So it's like, going to a game without a single person on your side. And so I'm with all these junior high girls and my coach, and then just me. So I'm like their dad. Okay, the only man to stand there to protect these girls. I feel like that's my role in this whole experience. And we got every single call went against us. Now I understand junior high basketball, and particularly junior high girl basketball, can be terrible to watch, and it can be really rough. Traveling fouls, jump balls, a million jump balls. It's ridiculous. And I'm sorry, boring those that don't like athletics, but you're either a bad official. Be bad for both teams. Okay, don't be one-sided bad. Okay, or you're a good official. You're gonna be ticky-tack. Be ticky-tack for both sides. That's my philosophy. Okay? Be bad for both. Be ticky-tack for both. That's fine. That's who you are. I can live with that. But when you're bad for one side and not for both sides, I kind of get upset. Well, the game ended. The game ended, and our girl, we had a chance to tie the game with a shot, and our girl got fouled. Not once, but twice on a shot, and they didn't call the foul. And the game ended. Just let the game end. Well, that pride and passion and desire to, yeah, you got it, came out in me a little bit. That natural tendency that I struggle with came out in me, and I may or may not have come out on the court to tell the official how upset I was at their lack of call, and for the whole game, and potentially I may have said that was a pathetic display. And I came out, and Megan is texting me on my watch, and that's popping up on my watch, and it's saying, "I can see you on TV. Stop it." And I'm like, oh no, I forgot that everything is filmed now. In COVID, everything is online and filmed. So it's not just everyone in the gym can see that, but everyone in the world. I mean, this could go viral. Like, it could go viral, and you all could see it. And so I was like, oh no. And so immediately as I was done and my emotions got in check, I went into the locker room and I apologized to the girls because I had missed sight of what God had called me to do. I had lost it. My emotions had come unglued and I had missed it. And there was no changing it. I couldn't do anything about it except embarrass myself and embarrass the God that I serve. And so it didn't stop there. So from that point on, I made a concerted effort to be better. Well, the final game of the season was this week, and I went into the season and I went into this game, and I just said, "Man, I really hope I hope we can win because this is my last chance to really leave a lasting legacy in these girls' lives, in their lives." And so I just prayed. I said, "God, help me to be everything you want me to be. Help me not to care about the score or whatever." Well, oh man. We salted away a lead, and at the end of the game, we were down 3 with the ball and a chance. Let me back up just a hair. The other team got a timeout called for them, and the girl didn't have possession of the ball. And typically, you're not supposed to get the ball, a timeout, if you don't have possession. But they gave it to her because I said, "Hey, she didn't have possession," talking to the referee, and he goes, "I heard her before. I heard her." Okay, so let that ring in your ears right there. I heard her. Okay. So we get the ball with 10 seconds left. We steal the ball. We come down. I'm waiting for them to cross the half-court line so that we can have the ball in a good position. I start yelling, "Timeout." I pull my mask down. "Timeout," as loud as I possibly can. 3 times, screaming, "Timeout." My girl throws it away in that process. After I've said timeout 3 times, she throws it away, and they give the ball to the other team. I had an opportunity. Do I come unglued again in front of all of our fans this time? And I said, "I yelled timeout. I didn't hear you." "What? You should have been louder." "What was I supposed to do? Come out on the court?" "I don't know. I yelled it as loud as I could. 3 times, screamed it." I later on went on to watch the video, and I screamed it 3 times. And the announcer, who's up at the top of the bleachers on the other side of the court, said, "The coach is screaming, 'Timeout, timeout, timeout,' and they're not giving it to him." Well, I decided that from that moment, at that moment, the Holy Spirit kind of came on me and said, Zach, stop it. It's over. Who cares? And I decided that I wanted my witness to be stronger than what those referees deserved at that moment. And I let it to be opportunity and a teaching moment for those girls, and went on to lose. But I'm going to come back to this story to show you the results of my, when I said no to my natural tendencies of pride and passion and power, in order to have more of a meek, humble attitude that Jesus desires us to have, as he says here in this Beatitudes. So I'm going to come back to the story to show you the kind of the full circle of what God did through that attitude versus my normal attitude, the desire, the natural desire that I want, that as I've been insulted, that I prove myself worthy. So according to Jesus, to authentically follow him, we are to be blessed, we have to be meek and humble in spirit. But again, meekness is not a form of weakness. In fact, it's much that's further from the truth as far as you can be. Meekness gives us a self-awareness and an understanding of our own personal shortcomings. The ability to have this mindset shows great strength of our character. When we are able to show meekness and humility in our lives, it shows a great strength of character, of self-control and recognition that our achievements are not of our own, that we get our achievements from someone who has blessed us or from whatever. So as we have this meekness and humility built into our lives, it eliminates any sense of superiority that we have over anyone else. Because we realize that all the good things that we've received and accomplished are from God. I love how Jesus tells us in Luke 14, it says, "For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted." So Jesus is saying if those that humble themselves at the get-go will later on be exalted in the kingdom, and those who have exalted themselves right now will be humbled in the end. Jesus is always our greatest example of who we should be, and as we see what a meekness looks like in Jesus' life, we discover that Jesus is not weak. His meekness is not weakness, but power and strength. Jesus was mighty in his meekness, as he was the Lamb of God who laid his life down, as we celebrated in communion, that he was the Lamb of God who laid his life down, and that wasn't a sign of weakness, but it was a sign of power and authority that he had. And that meekness that he showed on the cross and throughout his whole entire life, that meekness did not go in conflict with who Jesus was as the mighty Lion of Judah. All throughout the Bible, the appeal of God's people is to be meek and gentle. All throughout, if you read the Old Testament and all the way through the New Testament, God desires his people to be meek and gentle. Why? Why does God call us that? Because it's the only reasonable way to face life. Jesus, in his meekness, faced pushing, whipping, spitting, scoffing, everything men could do to inflict upon him, he experienced, even unto crucifixion. He went as the lamb to be slaughtered and never even opened his mouth. This was not weakness. Jesus did not show weakness by being submissive and having humility and humbleness. Okay? It was unbelievable strength that he showed. Jesus had the power, understand this, Jesus had the power to retaliate with such wrath and authority that he could send 1,000 angels in a moment if he needed to, that he could have destroyed everything by just simply saying that at that moment. That when they were whipping him, he could have had, just people's arms fall off. He could do whatever he wanted to. Okay, but yet he submitted to this. And it showed great strength. That even though this bad stuff happened to him all throughout his life, Jesus not only kept his cool when he was provoked, even to the point where most of us would have boiled over and been, if you would have experienced what he experienced, would have boiled over in rage and anger. But Jesus responded in love instead. The gentleness of Christ leads to restraint, so that our energy and our emotions aren't controlled by what that is, our energy and our emotions, as I did in that moment at that basketball game where I let my emotions and my energy show my character. When we have restraint and understand that and are meek and humble, it gives us the restraint to show or to live according to the purpose God created us to accomplish. God's purposes, rather than our emotional purposes and desires. Meekness will keep our passion and emotions on the right track. And the right track is to fulfill the goals of Christ. Meekness, when understood correctly, is the way of attaining mental and spiritual strength in our lives. It's how Christians are able to accomplish the will of God, even when people of power and people with power are aggressors, push their agenda. When we are meek, as Christ is, we eventually see that those with power and push their agenda and their emotions, when they push that, they end up not accomplishing anything. Okay? They end up usually never getting what they truly desire when they push that power and aggression. Okay? It's, as Jesus says, that we inherit the earth. And when I say we, those that live in that meekness and humility, those, as Jesus promised, will inherit the earth. The problem for so many people, however, is our inability to have self-control. Me, myself included. Having self-control. It's so difficult when somebody insults you. It's so difficult when the world pushes you and you want to accomplish so many things. It's so hard to have that self-control over our emotions and over our pride. We don't want to be slighted. We desire to be strong and people to respect us. And we want people to respect other people. And so we have that built into our mentality that it's so hard to have that self-control. And sometimes it's nearly impossible. For instance, yesterday my daughter and son had a soccer game. And I happened to be sitting on a mat with little Ella. So I was with the baby. And Megan is off taking pictures. And my daughter is you know, she's a little bit, I think she's a little older for her age, the group that she's playing with, and so she's physically bigger than most of the girls. And so, but my daughter plays, you know, all sports as her mother and I did, very aggressive and strong, okay? They're not just the type of kid that's going to just not go after the ball and just like, oh, don't touch me. They're not that type of person. They're the type of person as they see the ball, and they're going to get it. They don't mean to run you over, but if you're in the way for that ball, they're going to run you over. Okay, and the things that they were doing, my kids do, they're not doing it as like a foul. It's not like a thing. It's just, you know, using your butt, using your body, using your shoulders, using all of your body to get an edge to get the ball. Because they fight with each other all the time. They understand what it takes to overcome and in competitiveness. They understand how to use their body. And by the way, you know, soccer, I mean, you're supposed to use your body, not your arms. But you can use your legs, you can use your hips, you can use anything that you have, just not pushing people around. Well, my daughter does that. Well, Megan happened to be on the other side of the field taking pictures, and she came back at me, and her face was like angered, red. And she goes, if I hear another mom say anything about our daughter again, I'm going to lose it. She said, Mama Bear's going to come out. And I'm here with the baby watching Wiggles on my phone. I'm like, what? I don't even know what's going on, you know? And she's like, and she's angry. And then I started thinking about it. Someone's talking about my daughter? And it started to like burn in my gut too. I'm like, oh, she's not doing anything wrong. These people are, ugh. And I'm like, and the thing was, I did see my daughter start to play a little different. She was like, oh, I'm sorry. Like she started to go after the ball. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And you could see her being tentative. And, you know, and it's because these moms are yelling because stop touching my daughter. You're playing dirty. And Megan's like, clearly they never played soccer. Clearly they don't know anything about the game, and their precious little babies knocking down because they can't even walk straight. Okay? And they're kids. They fall down nonstop. I mean, that's just part of the game. But anyway, not understanding the game, it was making Megan very angry, which it's very hard for her to get angry. It's usually only me. But Megan getting angry at this, and then it began to stir in my gut. And so I'm like, oh, wow, this is amazing considering what I'm preaching about tomorrow, about being meek. And I'm like, Zach, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, God, help us to be good examples. Help us to be humble. Help us to have humility. Even when somebody is talking about my child, and my child's not doing anything wrong, and she doesn't deserve to be yelled at by an adult from a sideline who probably didn't play any sports at all. Anyway, I was reminded by 2 Timothy chapter 2 as I thought about this story. Let me say this. This is why Jesus says those people are blessed who are completely God-controlled and are focused on serving Him and finding amazing fulfillment in accomplishing His will. Because that's as I was praying, I was like, God, give me your strength. Give me your ability, because my wife, who's usually the level-headed one out of the two of us, if she loses it, I don't know if I can pull her off of another person, because I'm ready to go. I'm raring to go, especially for my daughter, who we're trying to get to play soccer. My daughter doesn't even want to play. She wants to just not play anything. She just wants to dance. And we're like, oh, just play soccer. Come on, let's be competitive. And she's really good at it. And for these moms to yell and make her not want to play, you're killing me. Anyway, to be completely God-controlled and focusing on serving Him is our desire. So 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 24-25, it says, a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but must be kind to everyone. Be able to teach and be patient with difficult people. Gently instruct those who oppose the truth. Perhaps God will change those people's hearts, and they will learn the truth. What Jesus is desiring from His followers is meekness that will bring a sensitive heart in you and I. Then, as 2 Timothy's passage says, we will look at people, like the moms on the sideline, look at those people as Jesus sees them. No matter what they do to you or I, or say about our kids or grandkids. Pretty hard pill to swallow. I told you this is a difficult one for me to preach about, because this is right in I'm an emotional, passionate person. Hopefully you've known that so far in my preaching and who I am. But I'm emotionally, and especially if you mess with my family, that's so hard. It's so hard to be meek and humble when you mess with my kids or mess with my wife or people that I love and care about deeply. That includes my church family, by the way. When we have true humility, all pride, though, is banished from our spirit. Without humility, there can be no true faith in our lives. For true faith begins in the realization that realization of our weakness and our need for God. True humility can only be reached when we are always conscious of that we are created beings, that God is our creator, and that without God we can do nothing. So when we understand that, we have true humility. When we understand that we can't do anything successful without God in our lives, without God helping us. We cannot be meek. We cannot be humble. It's not in our nature to be that in all circumstances. Some of us have that already because we may tend to be shy or whatever, but in all circumstances, because if you're put in my circumstance, I think that same anger might be in your gut as well. Okay? But it's only through God's power and strength are we able to accomplish that, by having real faith because of what God can do in us, that we're able to control ourselves. And that's by being controlled by God. So what about you? Would people describe you as a meek person? A humble, meek, gentle person? Or are you, like me at times, a victim of your very own passion? Have you allowed emotion to control yourself and force you to determine the response, your emotions to determine your response in situations when life gives you the blows of it, the blows of life, and makes you blow up at times? Which one are you? Well, Jesus gives us some advice to fulfill this beatitude. Matthew chapter 11, verse 29, it says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and lowly in heart." So Jesus says, if you desire to be like me and to be blessed, look at my life. Look at who I could have been if I really wanted to, and see my example. And it says, take my yoke upon you. Take my leading. Okay, allow me to lead you. Let me be your example. Let me bear that with you. Let me lead you through this process, because it's very, very difficult. But with me, you can successfully accomplish it and be exactly who I need you to be. Remember, The followers of Jesus who embody this gentleness are not weak, as our world teaches us. You're not weak because you're meek or gentle or humble, even though the world believes that. For those that are meek and humble and gentle, use their strength, use our strength for accomplishing not our own passion and desire, but it's to accomplish the will of God. For accomplishing Jesus' purposes versus our own emotional desires. For these meek people, as Jesus calls us to be, they don't strike back and fight. And they don't need to defend their ego and their pride because they realize that it's foolishness. It's foolishness to fight back. And it will only destroy your calling that God has placed on your life. This takes far greater power, as I said, when Jesus didn't retaliate on the cross, when Jesus didn't do all the things that he could have done. It takes far greater power by saying no to your natural desires to fight back in order to live out the purpose that Jesus has for your life and the desire that Jesus has for our lives. Way more power to be able to have that self-control. Remember, it was the meekness of Christ that spared all of us on the cross. Remember that. The proud and the arrogant are not open to the truth. It's only those that are humble in spirit, that are receptive to hearing what God has to say and allows God to change us and to mold us and to make us more into his image. And so I challenge all of us to let's be meek. Let's be humble. Let's be gentle. As Jesus was all of those things, as Jesus asked us to be, as Jesus says, blessed are those that are humble, that are meek, that are gentle, for they will inherit the whole earth. As Jesus said in our beatitude, again today, we will inherit the whole earth. Well, what exactly does that mean as I wrap up here? What exactly does that mean? Are we is Jesus going to hand us over the world? Are we going to get the earth if we are meek or humble? What does he mean by that? What is he actually saying to us? If you understand an inheritance, it's not something that is earned. An inheritance is a gift that is freely given to a loved one. And so a meek person would never try to seize the whole earth. A meek person, a humble person wouldn't try to go dominate the earth and try to dominate people, right? A meek and humble person, a gentle person would just kind of live life and allow the successes of life and understand that it's not their successes, it's someone else's successes that are doing that. And they would understand that they are unworthy of anything. And so as Jesus says that we will inherit the earth, what he's saying is that when we are meek and gentle and humble, then he will put us in opportunities to lead this earth. He will put us in opportunities to make an impact in this world. He will give us opportunities to make a lasting impact on people's lives. And together, cumulatively, he gifts us that. He gives us that ability. So when we are prepared, when we have our emotions in check, when we understand that it's better to be meek, it's better to be gentle, it's better to be humble so that we can accomplish the will of God in our lives and not have to fight back our ego and our pride, then God is going to put us, when we're prepared for that, then God is going to put us in situations where we can live out his mission and his vision for our lives. He's going to put us in leadership so that we can inherit the people. We can be a part of winning the people over to his kingdom. When we are meek. When we have our emotions in check. And friends, I'm still learning. I'm still trying. I'm still desiring. But it's one of those things where you have to die to yourself every single day. For me, I have to die to myself every single day so that I can be a meek person. So I can be a humble person. And I can be a gentle person. So I told you I was going to come back to the end of that story. Go ahead, you guys can come in. Go ahead and come up. But I told you I was going to come back to that story of my failure early on in my basketball this season as far as my emotion and letting that pride and arrogance come out. Well, I decided not to go off on the referees and, at the end of this game. And just, I made that concerted effort after that second game that I wanted to make an impact on this girl's life, all these girls' lives. And there's a couple of girls in particular that came up to me at the end of the season and just really wrote me some really, really nice letters telling me how much fun that they had in basketball, that they had never experienced that basketball like that in that certain way. And it was the greatest season of their life. And we didn't have a great year, win or loss-wise, but they said they've developed a love for basketball, and they said, I will forever be their favorite basketball coach. They'll get a new one soon. But the impact that I made on their life. And so there was one girl in particular that was really just super polite. She came up to me at the end of every single game, after every single practice. Even after the end of practice, we run for missed like free throws and things like that. And even after that, being tired of that, she would come up to me and she would say, hey, thank you so much for practice today. Junior high girl? What? A junior higher, period. Any teenager, every single day telling me, thank you so much. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome for making you run. No problem. And just thanking me every day. And so I emailed her parents and just said, hey, I just want to let you know that you are doing a great job raising your kids. She has blown me away. She's absolutely blown me away. The respect, the love and appreciation, the things that she's shown me. And the parents, father wrote me back an email and just expressed to me how much of an impact I have made on his daughter's life without even knowing it. That through the things that I've said and shared throughout this season and have made a lasting impact. Even to where that as the season ended, he told me that she was bawling. And she cried all night because she didn't want the season to end. Because she enjoyed it so much and enjoyed the things that I was able to teach her and the experience that she had and the appreciation that she felt. She didn't want it to end. And I realized that, wow, what an amazing illustration of when you choose to be meek, when you choose to be gentle. Because, guys, I wanted to win. I wanted to put a winner out there. I like to win, and I'm competitive. And this young lady wasn't a starter. Maybe, was in the middle of the pack of getting playing time. And sometimes she didn't get hardly any playing time. But yet, I realized that this is not what I'm here for. I got to put aside my emotion, put aside my competitive, put aside who I really want to be, my natural instinct, in order to be gentle, meek, and humble. Humble, not having to win. And I got to see the fruit of that. And not just her, but multiple girls and parents' emails and things like that, because I chose to be who Jesus wanted me to be, who Jesus called me to be. And it's made a lasting impact, not just this year, but it may be forever in their lives. So I want to challenge each one of us. Let's be that person. Let's be a meek. Let's be meek. Let's be humble. Let's be gentle, just as Jesus has called us to be, and we will inherit the earth, and we will be able to do the mission that God has called us to be as individuals and as the body of Christ.